Tillis. There she is, the one
Howdy,
and
howdy,
only,
howdy.
the legendary Pam Tillis joining us here tonight. Skip Clark from The Wolf and Skip Happens, and Deb Lamphear as well. Pam, it's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good now that I figured out how to find you here. And I love the name of your show, Skip Happens. It's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you for doing
Oh,
that.
my husband just turned on the light. What a
Oh,
concept.
no, look at that. Matt's doing good. Look at that. He's got it pretty good. I
Yeah,
love
I'm
it.
trying to get him to make me a margarita at Cinco de Mayo.
I know. And here I am. I don't know about you. I've got a cup of coffee and I said I should have a margarita.
Yeah, yeah.
We have to celebrate a little
It
bit.
would be apropos.
I love
Well,
it. I love it.
Make a round. That's okay. Make a round for all of us. That'll
There
work.
you go.
There you go. Yeah, you never know with today's technology. Maybe someday we're going to be able to do that. I
That's
don't know.
right.
It's kind of
It'd be
weird.
like Star Trek. You can beam me up there to Syracuse.
It's a good time of the year to come to Syracuse. Are you right in Nashville, Pam?
I am.
Yeah. Did you get those storms from a couple of nights ago?
We got 2 nights of storms, and he just put it on a stand. This is amazing.
Look at
Be
that.
hands free now.
Hey.
No,
I was talking
yeah, two stormy nights, and the day before, I can't remember that it was like almost like a tornado without the rotation, and I had been about an hour outside of Nashville, and I was driving home.
Uh-huh.
And I got stuck out in it, and I really thought that I felt like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz all of a sudden. I mean, I thought it was a tornado, and I thought
Yeah,
I was in
yeah.
the middle of it, but fortunately it was just really, really strong wind, and it died down, and I got home, and here we are. So I'm glad that
There's a name for that. I think they called it a delecto or something.
yeah, it starts with a D. That's right.
Never heard of it before.
Delecho I've never heard of it too. I've heard of frontline winds. I get
Yeah.
that. We get those here once in a while.
Right.
But the phrase that I saw on the web today, I'm going, or that whatever they call
Right.
it, I've never heard of that
I
before.
call it scary. Just plain scary.
That takes care of it all. But
Yeah.
it's such an honor to be chatting with you for a little bit tonight. Deb and I definitely looking forward to this moment. We're really excited that you've put out a new album and you've got a single that you can hear on The Wolf. And tell us a little bit about, what you're making this. You never really left, but it's good to have you back, if that makes any sense.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it does. I mean, you're right on both counts. I mean, I've been out there touring the whole time, and I actually made a couple of albums with my friend Lori Morgan, because we toured a lot together for about 8 years. We got a lot of shows booked together, and so we made some music to go with that. But this is my first album solo effort since, like, man, I guess time just got away from me. I think
Goes by fast.
2000, it does, 2013. And I just kind of had a batch of songs that had kind of been stacking up. And albums to me take just a ton of thought. I've never phoned one in. I've never put one out just to be putting one out. Like, I have to feel like you have to. If you just couldn't keep me out of the studio, that's when you want to be making a record. You want
Right.
to just feel that urge so strong, because it takes a huge amount of passion, a huge amount of commitment, and you're going to be in there for millions of hours, and you got to be into every second of it. And when I felt that feeling, I was looking for that feeling, and I felt it, and that's why this album is around now.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you feel that's the big difference between the way you do things and the way that it's done today? Do you think maybe they're in too much of a hurry to put out music today? And
They can be, and I think it's, you can't really blame the artist. Like they say that you take your whole life to make your first album,
True.
and then when that's a success, all of a sudden you're under tremendous pressure to come up with the subsequent albums, and you get on a little bit of a schedule, and they want you to do one once a year. I mean, some of those old rules don't apply so much. Like, rap artists and pop music, it's more random, and sometimes they'll put out a ton of stuff at one time. So some of those rules are kind of dissipating, but at least for a long time in my career, I just noticed that everybody was putting out product on a pretty regular basis. And that's the word that I don't like, product. Like,
Right.
I don't want to think about it like product. I want
It's
to
not
think,
product. It's
no, it's
creativity, and there's a lot more
it's a
to it.
way that I want my heart to reach your heart,
Mhm.
and that's not product.
I love that.
Do you think, well, you have your own label now, I understand. So,
Well, I've got a minion, which I have a minion, or I wouldn't have a label. But my husband is he's kind of the Swiss
Mhm.
Army knife of husbands, and he's currently making margaritas, by the way,
come
and
send to our
at
one.
which he excels at, by the way. But yeah, he's a businessman, and he also grew up in the music business, so he understands both sides of that equation. And so he and I have been doing this, and we've made a go at it. We've made, every record's been in the black, and
Mhm.
I've been proud of it. Oh, today we were the second most added Americana record.
Really? I did
Country.
not see that chart. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
pretty
Love it.
cool. And we hit number 3 last week, most downloaded on iTunes, and for country genre. So yeah, we're doing all right.
Yeah, Pam
Uh,
Tillis, look at
yeah,
you, girl. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
still
you're not
relevant,
stopping,
baby.
and I'm
Still
loving it.
relevant.
You produced all your own albums too in the past, correct?
Well, I produced one,
Okay.
and I never did it again because it was sort of like, do you remember? Did you grow up with that? Remember the little Mexican mice, the Speedy Gonzales?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
Remember how he'd play ping pong with himself and
yes.
he'd go on both sides of the net?
Yes.
That's what producing your own record is like. It's like playing both sides of the net. And
Yeah.
while it was gratifying because I love a challenge, I never did it again, but I love to co-produce.
Mhm.
You
I love
probably never slept.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
Oh,
this
go ahead.
this particular album, was almost done in phases. And so phase 1, excuse me, I got a tickle. Phase 1 was with
Your
my friend.
margarita.
Mhm.
Come on, honey.
Come on, Matt, let's go.
Come on, Matt. Phase 1 was with my friend Jimmy Ritchie, who I've been a long time
Yeah.
collaborator with. We've written a ton of songs. He loves classic country music. We've just got a lot in common. And he kind of helped me get going on the first half of the album. And then a very traumatic life event happened to me. People that this has happened to, they'll understand this. My dad passed away,
Mhm.
and I took about a year off.
Yep. Yep.
I just couldn't keep going. And then, the world turns around a few more times, and all of a sudden, the first tracks that I'd cut for the album, I decided I wanted to take the album and I wanted to push it in a little bit. I didn't want to abandon what I'd done, but I wanted to push it in a little bit different direction. And it was a little bit rawer, a little less fussy, a little less slick, a bit more organic. And I enlisted the services of a gentleman named Joe, by the name of, looky here.
Oh, look
All
at that.
Nice.
He's a keeper. He's a
Yeah.
keeper.
He is
Yeah.
a keeper.
Yeah, he's even
Anyway,
got the salt around the rim. I see that, and got the lime on the side.
Yeah.
Wow, no
We know
doubt.
how, we say down south in my family, we say we know how to do.
And he's doing. I love it.
Doing.
I love it.
But anyway, so I found a gentleman. I heard a Katie Lang album
Yeah.
that I just fell in love with, and it was done here in East. Found out it was done in East Nashville, and I looked on the back of the album, and it was this guy played half the instruments. He co-wrote some of the songs. He helped engineer it. He helped produce it. I went, this is one talented fellow by the name of Joe Pisapia, who's from up New Jersey way, and nice Italian man. And we went into the studio and finished the album, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, and now look
And,
at 12 tracks, and
yeah,
the single that's out there is just
Yeah.
so you, and just so soulful, and just awesome. And when it was sent my way, and they said, "Here, listen to this. Do you think you'll play it?" I listened. I said, "It's Pam Tillis. Why would I not play it?"
mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, you asked about do you remember Speedy Gonzalez and all that? You and I are about the same age, and we don't need to say that. So,
No, it's okay.
but still,
I'm coping.
you remember, and I was working country radio playing, maybe it was Memphis, maybe, I can go on. I played your hits.
Mi Vida Loca.
Yeah.
Mi Vida Loca would be a good one for today, by the way.
By the way, happy Cinco de Mayo. So you got that. There you go. There you go. So you've you're a member of the Grand Ole Opry, and that was what, 2000?
First woman of the new millennium.
You've been doing a lot with the women. You've been heading out on tour with is it Susie Boggess and Terry Clark? Or
yeah.
See, I love them both.
The tour with Lori, like I said, we got a lot of mileage out of that. We've got 8, almost 9 years out of that. And of course, she was also at the same time doing her own tour, and I certainly take my own band out and do my solo shows. But we right about the time that tour kind of wound down, I get a call from Terry Clark. And I had never known Terry. Terry's a little bit younger than me. She came out a few years later. And Susie and I are kind of from the same class, more or less. But, to tell you the truth, Skip and Deb, for many, many years, the tour packages, like I worked on some ginormous tours, like in the day, right? Brooks and Dunn and Vince Gill and George Strait and Alan Jackson. And you were always the girl on the package, right? They'd put one female on the package. And so consequently, you really, and I was gone so much, you didn't really get to know the other female artists, I think, in the business. Right. It's really, I feel like I missed years and years, because once I started, everything's different now, and started working with these other women, I just found such great camaraderie and sisterhood and support that I'm like, man, these are my girls. And I've loved working with Lori, and I love working with Terry and Susie, and they're pros. We've all been at it a long time, and they know how to have a good time, know how to have a laugh, and we love having great dinners and shop together, and after the gig we'll break open a bottle of wine, and we've just all got so much in common, and it's just been. But then when downbeat happens and the lights come up, it's all business, and that's great. We're taking care of business.
Yeah, you do take care of business, and you do it very well. And I'm trying to think. You're right. When we go to these shows, and I'm working these shows, and it's usually one female and the rest are the guys. And I think it'd be so exciting to see, one of your shows where it's you, Terry, and Susie, or maybe someday if you and Lori head out again. Just being an all-female show's got to rock. Just has to rock.
It really does. It is so much fun.
I think I read you were supposed to play at CMA Fest this year. Was that accurate?
Yes, and we've just had some really big festivals and events that are. We hope that. Well, CMA Fest won't happen this year, but we've got some other big festivals that we hope will. Maybe they'll happen in the back half of the year. They've pushed them back, Stagecoach and Country Thunder, and just a bunch of great dates on the books that we'll have to see what happens.
And how are you handling all this? I know everybody probably asks, but with this quarantine thing going on, and I know here in New York, we're still pretty much stuck in our homes, and we're doing everything from remote location, as you can see. But how are you handling it there? What do you?
Which, by the way, if I ever get to meet the man, I think I'll be all a flutter. Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, Andrew, yes.
I think it's done a hell of a job.
There's, I don't get into the politics for obvious reasons.
I don't care if he's what side of the thing he's on. I don't even know. Maybe I don't care.
We look forward to seeing and hearing his briefings every day, because what he reminds me of? Remember the old fireside chats from way back in the day?
Yeah, he's got a soothing manner, and he's got I like that word, gravitas.
Yes.
He's just got an authority that I felt has been very calming. And so even down here in Tennessee, I think a lot of us have been impressed with him. But anyway, Where were we?
Well, thank you for saying
What are you
that.
doing with your quarantine time?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's quarantine time.
you know, I'm like everybody. I Well, first of all, the bottom fell out on not just my business, but my husband's business
Yeah.
because he's got, uh, well, he's got, he had two restaurants, and one of them we sold just before this all happened. But he's got a bar that's kind of become. It just got voted like the CMA of bars.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They just voted them one of the top 10 bars in the country. It's called the Pearl Diver.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah, so that's been shut down. The gigs all shut down. And it's just been weird because we're very, very busy people. And then all of a sudden,
It stops.
the brakes, slammed on the brakes of, and, but we're doing okay right now. We've got enough to sustain. And I spent a lot of time thinking about, there's so many people that didn't have a margin. You know what I mean? And I think about those people and I worry about those people. And that's when I really feel down, is when I think about, people that just didn't have a big margin for
Right.
things to go wrong. And so that's when we've all got to.
I have to tell you, and Deb knows this, and she knows me very well, but just over this past weekend, I'm okay. Thank the good Lord. I'm good. And, I was out back having a cup of coffee on the deck, and I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking about the kids that aren't going to have their graduation, whether it's high school or college. I'm thinking about the people that are losing their business, the people that have no income right now. And I just I teared up and I'm like, wow, I'm not in a good, this is really hurting me.
And the poorer countries, they say, so it's really a time when we all have to figure out what we can do for each other.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do.
Food banks are a great place to start because there's a lot of things that people can live with, but hunger isn't one of them. Exactly. And so that's a good place.
It's not funny, but in our community, I was just talking with one of my neighbors, and it's amazing. There's a lot of children that depend on the school for their breakfast and their lunch meals because there's a lot of families that need help. And our school system is taking a bus service and delivering the food to these families' houses for the remainder of the school year because there's families with several children and they really needed the help. And when you think about how the community starts out and we really all, when it comes down to it, we are all there to help each other in every way possible.
We really have to be, because I just believe, we're all much more united in this than we are divided. And so we really need each other.
If you really want to feel better, if you really want to put a smile on your face, you really want to look up.
I'm in.
What you got? Well, you're already there because we put the Pam Tillis album on, and then we're all going to be happy because that's the music. That's real country.
That's the way I show my love.
Yeah, exactly. And how much you care.
I give you new music.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a positive thing, and when I hear it, it makes me feel good. So
thank you. That's the only reason that I do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm serious. It's a crazy business, a lot of ups and downs. And if people didn't tell me that it still mattered to them, I don't know. I just go to the farm.
Pam, do you mind taking us back a little bit with your roots and maybe growing up in the biz and talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to share that because I'm proud of that. I'm second generation country music, and I grew up, to me, I think Daddy came to Nashville. He brought me here when I was a baby. Mm-hmm. He had a young bride, and I was 1 year old. He moved us from Central Florida to Nashville, Tennessee. So Daddy had a variety of odd jobs. My dad, Mel Tillis, he had a very severe speech impediment. My mother said when she met him, he was just really quiet and so she didn't even realize he stuttered at first. And then she realized it was so bad. Remember when you had to place a long distance call You had to get an operator and place
Yep.
it.
Yep.
She would have to place calls for him. He couldn't even get
Oh.
get it out. So but he had a dream of being a singer and being a songwriter. And he came up to Nashville, Tennessee, and he met with an executive, a publishing company executive, and the man told him, "Mr. Tillis, we don't need any singing, we don't need any stuttering entertainers."
Hmm.
But boy, was he wrong. But what we do need is we need songs. And Daddy went, "Oh, you need you need songs."
Oh.
And he had been playing around and making up songs prior to that, but he went home and he wrote some songs and he brought them back to Nashville. And it was just his destiny because he knew there was something in him and he knew how to do it. He had talent.
Mhm.
And once he came back to Nashville with a bag of songs and they got recorded. And so for the first 7 years of my life, we moved back and forth from Nashville to Florida. We'd run out, Daddy would get a few cuts, make a little money, run out of the money,
Yeah.
and he would go back. We'd move back to Florida and he would write some more songs. And we did that like I said, for 7 years until he he made enough of a name for himself to stay in Nashville. And then at one time, I don't even know how many songs he had on the charts that he'd written. And then as more and more of his songs were becoming recorded, he started getting some guest spots on television shows. And once the TV audience, like he started performing on the Porter Wagner show, which was a big syndicated show. And he got some traction there. But his really, really big break in television was the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour.
I'll remember it
And,
well.
and once national television got a load of Mel Tillis,
Mhm.
it was all
over. Yeah.
And then he started being in some movies, and he was doing all the talk shows, Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin, and all those shows. And he won Entertainer of the Year. Anyway, it was just an exciting time to be in Nashville. Great music was being made. You know, that's the era of Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson and Ray Price and Roger Miller and just Dolly Parton. All of that great music Kenny Rogers, all of that music came out of the early 70s. And that was my formative years. And that's why I just love that kind of country music.
Wow. Just
Did
amazing.
That's my roots.
go into music yourself, even though you were brought up around it? Is that something you always knew in your heart you wanted to do? Even
Well, I didn't know for sure because oh honey, wait, I
bringing
can't
you
eat that now, but I
margarita.
just want you to see this. We have tamales
oh,
and
boy.
refried beans and rice, and that's gonna be dinner.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
He's doing all right.
Holy
Good.
guacamole. Holy, where's the guacamole?
Oh, wow. Not to interrupt this conversation at all, but does he cook dinner right along for you? Look at that. That's fabulous.
It's pretty great. It's
You
pretty
got a
great.
good man. You got a good man.
I did. But I didn't know if I was going to be a country artist or not. I loved all kinds of music. I studied classical piano as a kid. I loved Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, and I loved all the rock and roll of my generation. A lot of Southern rock, the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, and then everybody loved the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. I am such a big In fact, there's a little bit of
Really?
Led Zeppelin influence on a song on the record called Burning Star. That's a long story, another podcast.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
I love classic rock. I love folk music. I loved everything. And then I went for a brief time, I went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and I met a jazz piano player there, and we became friends. And he said, "You could sing jazz." And I went, "You think so?" He says, "Yeah." He says, and he started playing, and it was an incredible pianist. And I started riffing around, and anyway, next thing you know, I'm moving to San Francisco with a jazz band. My dad freaked out. He's like, where did I go wrong? But I met all these people that had been in the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane, and that was crazy. I lived 5 boats down from Shel Silverstein on a houseboat.
I vote
I
down.
was a little hippie girl. It was very colorful.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was too weird of a scene for me. So I came back home to Nashville, and I sang. I did a lot of studio work. I sang demos for other people, and I was a staff songwriter, and I sang a lot of commercials. I sang Country Time Lemonade and Coors Silver Bullet and Coke and Budweiser and just different commercials.
Right.
But people knew that I also had a soulful side, and I wrote. I've had songs recorded by Chaka Khan and Gloria Gaynor, and
Wow.
people knew that I liked R&B too. I was even in an R&B band, so I just loved to dabble. For a long time, I just dabbled, and I got a lot of session work because I could sing a little bit of all different styles, which, as a session singer, is an asset. But at a certain point, I knew I wanted to be an artist, but remember when there were record stores?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no,
And then
but
Wasn't on
album.
long.
but these A&R people started telling me, they said, Pam, you can sing anything, but you really have to come up with your direction because we need to know where to put you in the record store. And that was true at the time. You needed to, they really wanted to know how to classify you, right?
Yeah.
And so my first couple of efforts were more pop, though. I had a pop album, and
I didn't know that.
yeah, I had a pop album I recorded in LA with a bunch of people that had worked with, I don't know, some people you might know. But anyway, and it just never took off. It never took off. And so I did a lot of soul searching, and I came back to Nashville, and I just kept writing songs. And I just, I noticed this about myself, and everybody else around me said, Pam, you can do all this stuff, but when you write a country song and you sing a country song, that's when we believe you. You know what I mean? That's what was ringing true for people. And I went, I just started thinking maybe this is my destiny, and I've kind of wandered off, and I've often said, I mentioned Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz earlier, being swept up in the tornado, but I really actually felt like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz because I came home and I realized that everything that I'd been looking for was in my backyard.
Right there, and right where you are right now. So.
It was right there, and then all of a sudden I got really inspired, and I embraced my roots, and it's like something like the switch flipped. And I'm going to tell you something I haven't told a lot of people. Thank you for letting me share all this.
This is so interesting to me, and
all of a sudden I became very hungry to know the music that I'd kind of tuned out for a while, because I went through a phase as a teenager where country music, that was my dad's music, right?
Oh, yeah.
As cool as my dad was, it was my dad's music.
It was your dad.
Yeah, and so I went up, the people at the Country Music Hall of Fame, that was before you could stream everything. You couldn't just find it, online. And I started spending a lot of time at the archives. And I just listened to, first of all, I listened to everything my dad ever did that I didn't, because he had such a big body of work. As a little girl, I was busy being a little girl. I didn't know everything he'd done. And then I just started, I went all the way back to the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And I almost like educated myself. And I'm like, holy crap, this is cool as anything that,
That's my dad. That's what you're saying at that point.
This is my roots. And I really owned it. And I said, I'm going to make the country album that I was born to make. And that's what my first album for Arista Records became.
Yeah. How was it when you listened to going into the vault there and listening to like your dad's music. I mean, how did that like grab you emotionally?
It did, and
Really make you think?
it was almost cathartic. And
Yeah,
honey, I think we're gonna have to plug the phone in. It was almost like cathartic, and
battery's blinking.
yeah, and it was extremely emotional. I
Yeah,
mean, it was almost hard because it stirred up uh, so many memories.
yeah.
I can't even tell you, but it wasn't
Definitely.
just like I said. It wasn't just Dad's music. I listened to the Carter Family and
Yeah.
Hank Williams, and I just immersed myself in so much music and became a student of it.
Yeah, that would have been hard. I don't know if I would have been able to do that like you did, but you're so strong, and your heart is where it needs to be. And knowing who your dad was and how he brought you up and all those memories, I'm sure there's a lot of good ones. Might be a few bad ones. I don't know. Everybody has those relationships,
Well, I will tell you that um, the country artist, the time that Dad was coming up in, um, Daddy really didn't make like he didn't make a ton of money for the first 12 years of my life. The
Mhm.
business was very different back then. If you made 25 grand a night, that sounds like a lot, but you got to imagine you're pulling a 10-piece band behind you.
Right.
Uh, in other words, now a big artist will make $1 million a night. I mean, think about that. Back then, if you sold 50,000 albums,
Mhm.
you were a big deal. It
Mhm.
was a very different world. And you didn't have YouTube, and you didn't have 20. So a country artist would typically tour between 250, 300 days a year. And so, as you might imagine, there was a lot of sacrifice
Oh
involved
yeah.
Yeah.
Their whole life
with the
they're on the
family.
road. Yeah, and their
Yeah,
family's home and they're away because
yeah,
they're out
and
earning their living.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So it brought up. I felt like he and I missed a lot,
Mm.
but I understand it, especially now that I followed in his footsteps. I just realized he was doing, and he always took care of us, and he was ultimately he was a great dad, and he taught us a lot,
Yes. Yes.
and he was a really kind man. But we missed a lot of time together, and that's
Yeah.
hard. But I a lot of people, a lot of children of famous parents will tell you that you're also, while it might be painful sometimes, you're so proud to share them with the world. And
Mhm.
he brought so many people so much happiness. I can't argue with that.
No, absolutely. And you wouldn't be where you are or are today or where you
No,
were like in the 90s. I
no,
mean, without your dad. Let's just face it. I mean,
no.
his influence, his ways of doing things and making sure you were on that right path.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and you went on to have great success. What was it in 1994? You were crowned the CMA's Female Vocalist of the Year. I think that was 94.
yeah.
What an experience. That's when it was all developing for you. It was huge in 95. I'm reading some notes here. You got CMT's top female video artist, and that
Hmm.
looks so good.
It is really good.
It's just like,
There's a
wow.
reason he's got one of the top 10 bars. But
They look perfect.
when
Oh man.
but yeah, it once things once I had that first hit, um things, I got some momentum, and I had a great run at radio, and I've gotten to do so many things that I never dreamed I'd get to do. And I was proud that um Dad gave me good roots, but
Mhm.
he also there's a song, give me he gave me roots and gave me wings.
No, yeah.
So at a certain point, he had to step back and let me make my mistakes and fall down, and
That's how you do it.
and wander off, and then come back. And so yeah, he didn't really understand that I kind of had to find my own way for a while, but once it all came together
You
for
did
me,
it.
he was proud of me.
Once you found your way, you were on that highway.
Yeah, yeah,
how did
yeah,
you had recorded I think 13 of his songs. It must have been after you had gone through and listened to all of his music and
yeah.
figured
and
out how
and all
world did you pick those songs with
It
all
was
of?
really hard. And I waited to make that album. I wanted to really get on the other side of anybody thinking that I was trying to cash in on my last name or ride on his coattails. So once I'd had enough hits and made my own, name for myself, I was really, really happy then to say, okay, a lot of artists will do records that kind of pay tribute to their roots. And for me, it was a built-in deal. So
Oh,
I set about, finding songs that fit fit a woman to sing and fit my voice. Like, Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town is a man's song. Everybody said, why didn't you do that? I'm like, wait a minute. I had to change too many of the words.
Yeah, exactly.
But man, he just had a deep catalog, and I had so much fun doing that record.
I would be very emotional if it
Yeah.
It
were.
was so emotional, and a big, 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 big moment for me was bringing Dad into the studio, setting him behind the mixing console,
Mm.
and pressing play,
Mm.
And
and
where,
and watching his reaction to all of it. It
yeah,
was really amazing.
where were you recording then? I mean, you were in Nashville, but do you remember the name of the studio?
We tracked. My husband's got a better memory than I do. We tracked that album in at a place called Soundstage, but we did a lot of the overdubs at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's why I was going to ask you to get a start of the, you did some in the studio and then you would at home, you were able to put some tracks down and then maybe bring them in and mix them all down.
yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
So it's pretty weird when we had people like Dolly Parton come over to the house and record, do backgrounds, and Emmy Luke Harris came over and sang, and the
Mhm.
Jordanaires came over.
Oh my goodness.
And it was really funny having the Jordanaires. I'm like, they all drove white cars, and they not only do they sing in formation, but they parked in formation.
Really?
It was really funny. And
That is so
of
awesome.
course, my husband, I've never seen him so starstruck as when Dolly came over. He
Love her.
kind of lost his cool. He was really he turned into just it was really funny. He was a puddle. He was
Yeah.
just a puddle.
And look at Dolly. She's still going strong and still doing her thing. And just
Yeah,
love that woman. How can
there's actually a song on the new record that I hope you'll get to hear called Dolly 1969.
Mhm.
That one of my favorite cuts on the album, and it kind of pays tribute to her in a way, in a real neat way. There's an iconic photograph of Dolly in 1969, and she's got her foot up on the bumper of
Hmm.
a sedan DeVille, Cadillac sedan DeVille, and a friend of mine, a guy named Bob Reagan, wrote the story about that picture. And anyway, check that out. It's
absolutely.
yeah.
I did. Actually, I listened to every single song about 10 times today. Absolutely.
Mm,
She's
Whole
not
that's so great. I love it.
So
Hey, you said you dabbled a little bit in radio. You were at WSM for a little bit.
Yeah, and actually, I think I'm doing a DJ takeover for them tomorrow.
Oh, very
Uh,
cool.
Yeah, for about a year, I did a little. They gave me a show for a
Mhm.
year, and I think I don't know. I don't know if I was too eclectic or if they just wanted to change it up. But I played everything, but I try to tie it always back to country music. But I played all different decades,
Oh, really? You're
and
like all over the place.
I was all over the place.
You're like a program director's worst nightmare when that happens.
I think so.
But
I
it's
might
you. It's
I might be
Tillis. You can do
I
whatever
might
you want.
I might be eclectic to a fault.
I love it. So you did that for about a year, which is very cool.
It
And you're
was
doing,
fun.
like a takeover tomorrow at WSM.
Hmm.
And that is so cool. I mean, that's a legendary station, of course. And so awesome. How about the Opry and being on that stage for the first time way back in the day? How was that?
Oh, well, I have a great memory of being on stage with Dad when I was 8 years old. That was my first time,
Okay.
and it was at the old Ryman, which is a very different vibe than
Yes.
if your listeners have never been if you come to Nashville, if you haven't been to Nashville, I totally encourage you to go to the Ryman, because that is the mother church.
Yes.
And it's got a vibe like no other place. It's rated consistently one of the, if not the top, one of the top venues in the country. The sound is amazing. And Hank Williams stood on that stage. Patsy Cline stood on that stage. I saw Tammy Wynette as a little girl.
Mhm.
Minnie Pearl. I mean, the class, just, oh my God, so much history. And of course, I love the new venue, the new Opry House. But to be a part of the Opry family and to stand in the circle, that, it's the circle, and it's, I still get nervous.
Yeah.
I do.
I
I
bet.
do.
I bet.
It's just a different feeling.
Deb and I have been there at Nashville for some meetings, and we go to the Ryman, and we go in there. I cannot help but think about, I just stare at the stage and I'm going, look, just thinking about everybody that's walked across that stage,
Yeah.
everybody that has stood in that circle. And
Yeah.
here I am just sitting there, just looking. And it just amazes me. And you're right. Anybody, if you're thinking about going to Nashville, you've got to go to the mother church. You've got to go to the Ryman. That's all.
You do. And I mentioned the museum, the country music.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go. It's so well curated. So we have to get on the other side of all this so we can do all that stuff. Nashville has got a rich history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm getting there every chance I get. So
we done. Deb's there quite often. She's actually got a son that's living in Nashville now. And
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Very
good.
Cool. Very cool. But we've been chatting with Pam Tillis, and she's out with some brand new music. She's got a single that you can hear on the Wolf on the radio, and it's called "Looking for a Feeling." And we're so proud to be playing that. And and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's great to be talking with you. It's great to know that here you are, somebody that has put it all together in the past. You're putting it all together right now in this day and age. You're still going strong. It's just amazing. And I know it's not easy, but you're doing it.
Well, I'm hanging in there. I watched my dad. He worked for 50 something years. I couldn't believe it. I don't. Sorry, I don't know if I'll do that, but I'm coming up on 2021 will be 30 years of touring.
Wow.
And then I had another 15 years prior to having first hit. So I can't believe it.
Let me ask you, does it feel like 30 years?
Sometimes yes, but sometimes no. Sometimes I look back and I go, I can't, wow, where did it go? But
yeah,
you have those moments, when you have those long flight days, and you're like, wow.
Oh, you're riding a tour bus.
This is not for the faint of heart.
No, exactly. And there's a lot that people don't see. And you being the artist, I mean, there's a lot that goes on that, it's a tough day for you. It's a tough day. Especially margarita.
It's not such a tough day.
I feel bad drinking it in front of you, but he made it. What can I do?
That's okay.
No. I actually thought about that. Instead, I grabbed a cup of coffee, and I don't know. I just said,
what were you thinking?
Cinco de Mayo. I know. Exactly.
We come on quite often with a glass of wine or something while we're shooting. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I love coffee as well as the next person, but it's happy hour.
It's happy hour.
Especially there. You're an hour behind us, so that's okay.
Right.
We're in upstate New York. We're still fighting the cold weather. We're even talking about snow flurries from others.
Oh, my heart hurts for you.
Yeah.
We tornadoes notwithstanding, we've had a pretty spring here, and I've been home to enjoy it. And a lot of years I'll miss the prettiest parts of the season because those happen to be good touring times. So as hard as it's been, I have enjoyed the home time.
Are you staying healthy and everything?
Yeah. I've got a tickle right now, but no, I'm very healthy.
A margarita will take care of that tickle.
Yeah. So, no, I'm staying healthy and I'm staying safe. I worry about, I know people have to get back to work, but I do worry about, I don't want people to, I just want everybody, even if they get out, to still be safe, because
absolutely.
you can't see viruses. They're there, but you can't see them. But So I
You have
just
to be
hope people
smart.
are, I hope people be are smart about it. Yeah.
Right. You have to be smart, and you have to, I mean, I've gotten to the point really, I mean, I have to look things up myself because just listening to what's being said, it doesn't matter what channel you're watching, who you're listening to, you're hearing all these different
Yeah.
stories. You don't know what to believe, what not to believe. You don't know what
Right.
to do, what not
Right.
to do. Just got to be smart and just do your
Well,
own research.
I, I think that they're still figuring out. They're still learning it.
Yeah.
But one thing I can say, because I am the oldest of six kids, and I've been known to give some advice,
Oh.
being the big sister. But I think the healthier that you stay,
Mhm.
the better. I think that's the best way. Other than washing your hands and
Right.
doing all those kind of things. If you can just stay healthy, and part of that is being optimistic. So
Mhm.
and staying connected to people, try to keep your spirits up, and eat a good diet, and all the things that always made sense. Eat as good as you can, and get good
Exercise. Get up and walk.
exercise, get extra sleep, and you know that's really, until they come up with the right kind of medicine. We have to practice really good self-care.
Yeah.
We-
Do you get outside and walk? What kind of
I
exercise do
I
you
I love to walk.
know?
I do. I'm not a runner, but I do love to walk. And
No, good walk is
I got a bicycle that I'm going to start doing some biking. And I love to garden. I
Mhm.
love to be out in nature. I'm a
Mhm.
country girl at heart. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs.
love
I mean, I'm not going to tell you I grew up on a farm and, hay bales and tractors and all that. I'm actually a suburban girl, but I love being out in the country. I'm never happier than when I'm in my overalls and planting turnips.
Are you are you living in the country now? Is your house on
No,
a
we
farm or
live in
anything?
the suburb. We live in the suburbs. Well, we actually live pretty urban.
Mhm.
We moved into town to start these restaurants, but
Mhm.
we have a little cabin out in the country, and I'm out. It's really peaceful.
Yeah, you can escape from everything that's going
Yeah,
on. You need
yeah.
to go away.
What is
Go
the name of the other restaurant? You mentioned there were two restaurants.
Yeah, well, he sold that one, but for 6 years we had a restaurant called the Tree House, and but the bar is called the Pearl Diver, and
Okay.
it's really a beautiful little spot. And so,
Before we let you go, you played
what's
a
that?
regular role. No, what's that?
Oh, no, nothing. Just
Oh, okay. He's asking if you want another margarita. Yeah.
yeah, right.
You played a regular, um, I guess, a reoccurring person on Nashville, right? You were on that quite often.
Yeah, I played myself.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
it
That
was
was
a
on a regular.
stretch. It was
Yeah. But
no.
that was cool. I
Well, you
remember
know what?
seeing it.
They
Yeah.
wanted to weave people in that were themselves
Mhm.
Mhm.
to make it all seem more real,
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And my friend Callie Corey was the creator of that show, and we go way, 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 way back. We met each other at a club here called the Exit Inn, and I was doing a
Mhm.
showcase. It was before I was anybody, and she was just a waitress there, and but I knew she was really smart, and she had a great sense of humor, and we hit it off, and we became friends. And she went to LA. She left here, and I was sad about that because we were best buddies.
Mhm.
And she started doing some writing, and she shared one night. I was staying with her. I came to LA to record, and we were hanging out at her apartment. And she said, "Hey, I've been doing some writing. Would you like to read? Would you like to read some of it? Would you mind looking at some of it?" And I promise you, she had her stories. She had some short stories in a shoebox.
Mhm.
Wow.
And we were hanging out in her dumpy apartment. And I started reading these stories, and they were actually, I didn't know what to make of them. They were kind of a little bit odd, but I was struck by her. She was really good with dialogue. And I think dialogue is one of the hardest things to write. And I told
Sure.
her that.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I don't know how to critique these, but I said, your dialogue is really good. It's really believable." And so she just, one thing led to another. To make a long story short, a few years later, she won Screenplay of the Year. She won an Oscar for Thelma and Louise.
Oh, very
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
great.
And so that was 30 something years ago.
Just yesterday.
Yeah. And anyway, so she's just continued to
Mhm.
do a lot of things in that industry. And a few years back, she called me up. She goes, I think I'm coming back to Nashville for a while. And I'd been waiting for years. I kept thinking she'd moved back.
Uh-huh.
And she said, yeah. She said, I've written a pilot for a show called Nashville. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm so glad. Come on back. And she did. So they got several seasons out of that, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed all the people on the show, Charles Eston and
Oh, yeah.
Connie
Yep.
Britton, and everybody was so
They're all good people. We've met them all, and
Yeah.
definitely great people. And the
Yeah.
nice thing about watching Nashville was week after week after week, because me being in the radio business, and Deb and I, that I always saw somebody I knew. It's like, oh my God, that's so and so. Oh my gosh, there's so and so. You know, they're just making cameo appearances, but it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's so cool. Such a, it brings us all together, and it really is a small world when you think about it. So
Yeah, and it really, I don't know. I think it's like, remember the show Dallas and how hot Dallas. I mean, when you put a show out there like that, it it I'm not saying it was single-handedly responsible for the next thing you know, Nashville is what they called an it town.
Mhm.
It was the it town.
yeah,
All of a sudden, for a long time it was just like, oh, that's country music and nobody cares. And I
mhm.
don't know, all of a sudden Nashville became,
Oh, it's
it's
the
like,
place
oh,
to be.
it was the place to be. And I do think the show had a part of that,
Yeah,
it really,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Even though,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of it was real, a lot of it was not real, but
right,
it
yeah,
was, it was, it
well,
actually,
they had to add a lot of drama to
Of
keep it.
course.
exactly. And the Bluebird really wasn't the Bluebird. But
No, but it looked just like it.
right, no, they did a great
They
job.
did an
Great
unbelievable
job.
job.
And it was a great show, but all good things always come to an end. So, you
I've
know,
actually, a little thing about that, I'd actually been on three different Bluebird. I've been in three different Bluebirds, and I don't know if
really,
anybody else can say that, but I was in a movie called A Thing Called Love, and that was shot in LA, and they created the Bluebird on a soundstage
really,
in Los Angeles that was so real. I left the set and I started looking for my car. It's
Ah!
like, I mean, it was like, where am I? And then when they built the Bluebird, because not only did we shot some scenes at the real Bluebird for Nashville,
Mhm.
but they also had the Bluebird built and a soundstage here. So how about that? Yeah. So
Oh
three
my God.
Bluebirds. Yeah.
Well, I don't think anybody else can say that.
No, I don't think so.
Only Pam Tillis, the one and only, the great, the legendary Pam Tillis. Yeah, it's been such an honor to sit with you and chat with you and hear your stories and how you were brought up, and being putting out the big hits, and just everything about you is so real, and you're such a wonderful person, and we're very excited about the new music. No, seriously, we're very excited about
Thank
the
you.
new music
Thank you.
that's out there.
I,
Uh, Deb kept playing that today, and it's just over and over and over again.
well, that's so high. It's incredible. It's been so long. I was a little bit nervous about, like, how's this going to be received? And there's some different flavors on the album, and you never know. You don't. It's kind of a scary moment when you're putting it out in the world. But I
Mhm.
just want to thank you. I'm glad you like it. I really am.
Oh, yeah,
I put my heart into it, and that's all you can
absolutely.
do at the end of the day. And then
Absolutely.
let it go.
I'm reading some of the comments here on the side, and there's a viewer right now. Her name's Lori Snyder. Says she stood in that circle at the Ryman. It's magical.
It is. It really
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
that's so cool.
So,
That's very cool, Pam. I don't know if Deb's got anything else she wants to add, but it's been almost an hour, and it's an hour out of your very valuable time, and you spent it with us. And I thank you for doing that. And it
Hey,
just,
honey, will you come and just wave to everybody?
yeah, come on over.
He never does this. He's really shy, but
let's
Oh,
meet.
stop.
there he is.
Hey.
Oh,
Aw.
Say
aw,
hi.
I love it.
Hi.
We'll stop at the restaurant next time we're in town.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a
I'd
good
love that.
bartender. He makes great, well, he's got the guacamole and everything going on there. So,
Well, I will mention that he grew up in the business too, and his daddy, Buddy Spiker, played with Crystal Gale and Ray
oh,
Price
yep.
and Wilburn Brothers,
Oh my
and he played on Amarillo by Morning, and so he grew
God.
up in all this stuff too. So
That's so
he's not right either. he he ain't right either.
you know what?
Anyway,
That's perfect. That's
I've just had
awesome.
the best time with you guys. You both do fantastic interview, and
Thank
I've
you.
just had so much fun. Thank you.
No,
thank
thank you for doing that. Yes. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I know it, you know, being who you are, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I appreciate you wanting to and coming on with us. And we love you. And Pam Tillis, we will, you know, I can't say this enough, but I need my listeners and our viewers to go buy your music, listen
Thank
to it.
you.
Let's dive right back into for me, that's the way, that's country. That's
Well,
what we are.
that's the way I can be there for you. And until I see everybody up there in upstate New York again, be safe, be strong. Keep on the sunny side.
Absolutely. Pam, we love you, and we're going to let you go. Stay
Thank
safe.
you, Kip. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you so much.
Stay healthy, and I hope our paths cross again real soon.
Same here.
God bless you.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye, Pat. Nice to meet you too. Bye, Pam. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.